Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the round two of Ecco Debate Competition 2021. This is under the motion, this House believes that national schools should go fully digital. Before we begin the round, there are some terms that I would like to remind everyone. Please, before your speech, introduce yourself and say gender pronouns preference. And also, please also indicate us your preferred methods of POI. And lastly, please do time yourself because I'm not sure I'm gonna be available to time you every time, but I will help you with the timestamp. Cool, cool. Let's invite the Prime Minister to begin the debate. Here.
Let's start my timer first. Am I audible?
Yes, you're now audible.
He or him gender pronouns, POI ban and mute. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Panels with the current situations of the environment, the current situations of the world that happening right now. It's a right time for us to solve it. We could see how the world become hotter because of the emissions that been released by industrial company in industrialized country. That is to say, danger the atmosphere because they release a ton of CO2. That is to say, will affect the climate, how the ice in the Antarctic also melting every day per day. Notice on how the climate has been changed for a long time. Notice on like our natural hope to fight that those climate change has been decreased. What I mean, like the trees, yes, the trees, like imagine the illegal logging that been increased every year. Imagine how many trees that like been cut for the sake of educations, like for the sake of educations, the environmental system being ignored. Like does it really matter? Yes, obviously, because the opposition might saying that, oops, to making a book we just need like a quarter of the tree. So the government trying to saying that we are exaggerating the fact that a book or paper made by the trees. Panels, this system that endangers nature had been implemented for like 3 or 4 centuries since the very beginning. Like panels, each years there are like 7.84 million trees that been cut to make papers for the sake of education. So for 3 centuries, how many trees that been cut? It's incalculable, right? So we believe rather than keep campaigning the climate change or the environmental damage, we keep promoting how we should save this world that happened lately through the education system, that is to say danger the environment. So we as the representative of the house will require national schools to go fully digital. Our mechanism is simple. We want national schools that exist to implement digital learning. For instance, previously the student use a book for them to write what they get from the teachers. Now they will use like for instance Microsoft Word. They can use the Microsoft Word. They change the book, like a very thick book given by the teachers, now change into a PDF or document, something that is accessed in the internet. That is to say, the digital learning has unlimited resources for students and also a teacher to implement education. So what we mean by fully digital is mean that every learning process will be used a digital platform. For instance, like we're in the corona situation where students live in their home, so they will use like a Google Classroom, etc. So yeah, so uh, the current situations of learning process is one of the example for this motion. So in this debate, I'll bring two substantive. First, the justifications, and second, the eligibility of the national school. So our goal here as the government is to create an education that is hand in hand with the environment. That there's no let's just think like the educations, but at the end of the day, it will be the environment system will be being ignored. So first, substantive, the justifications. Two parameters to support this argument. First, the capability of the government. We can clearly see that the opposition will saying that if we want to change to the digital learning, it will require a lot of budget. But we under the government side, we don't think that it's really necessary, because at the very first place, the government has a lot of fund, the government has a lot of assets. That is to say, they can allocate it easily to the public school itself, the national school. So the budget is not a really problematic thing in this debate. and also looking under the capability of the government here, not just they want this national school to fully implement this digital learning, and they will relying on the capability of the national school itself. But the government here, they will be taking on responsibility. What I mean by responsibility, the government, like, they will do like the socializations, not the socialization. They will introduce the digital learning through for the students and also the school. So the government will not neglecting the process of national schools. That is to say, not national schools are ready to implement this kind of digital learning. Looking on how the government in the status quo right now, there is no like incentive from the government to change the this system, that is to say endangers the environment, by making like a learning project system. Like, that is to say, there's in the status quo, there's like Ruang Guru, Zenius, or etc. But it came from the private property, it not come from the government. So we believe it's the attempt for the government of the country to implement this kind of motion. Second, the responsibility of the government. We can clearly see, as I said before, there's no like an incentive from the government previously. Like, this is the right time for the government to fight those problem that those environmental issues that have happened lately, by changing the learning system, that is to say endanger the environmental. So we believe it's the responsibility of the government to implement the digital learning in the school. Second, I'll talk about the eligibility of the national school. Looking at the characteristic of the national school itself, we can clearly see that, like for instance, in a developing country, a majority of the society go to the public school. Why? Or national schools. Why? Because it's free. So we believe national schools is an asset of the government, so the government can clearly use them to implement this kind of learning system, by not forcing them to rely on themselves, so the government will be ignore them. No. So we believe the national school has an eligibility to do such kind of thing. Why? Because at the very first place, they have a fund come from the government. So if as I said before, if the opposition trying to say that the budget is really they must buy handphone for all the teachers, and they must subsidize the quota of the students. No, it's not a big deal, because at the very first place, the government has an asset. They have a lot of resources, and they have like in the status quo right now, there is like dana board. So at the end of the day, this kind of fully digital learning will be easily implemented in our state of the house. Looking on how then, if the opposition is trying to ask why then the education system is really matter to fight this environmental problem, panels, please notice that education system is the most trusted sector to the society. How can I say that? Because education sector will touch every layer of society, every layer of the society. At least they will go to school in their life. So it means that the time of the education system, like Indonesia, is 12 years. That it's enough to educate them to using this digital learning system. That is to say, in the future, when they go to work, when they have a job, we can see that 90% of the job using a digital platform. So because of that, we can clearly also teach them how to prepare for the future. That is to say, the future need a technology, right? So because of that, we as the it's the government responsibility to teach their students to prepare the future. And also looking on the effectiveness of the digital system, we can clearly see that the digital system will be effectively implemented in our side of the house. Why do I say so? Like, we can take example for right now, like when the coronavirus happens, we are shocked, right? We as the students shocked that we need to learn at home. We need to open our Google Classroom every day. We need to open our WhatsApp every day, and the teachers only give the lessons via YouTube, or they don't give it at all. So because of that, we can like prepare them for a scenario that is to say, it is the same with the coronavirus. When another virus came, so they're not that shocked to use this digital learning system. And also like the interest of students to go to the national school is quite big, right? So it's the right time for the government. It's a big opportunity for the government to implement this fully digital system, because the government doesn't really have implement this kind of proposal to the private school. So because of that, our goal that education that is hand in hand with the environment will be exist in our set of law. So that's why we're proud to propose. Thank you.
Thanks for that speech. I would like to invite the leader of opposition.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Well, okay. If you want to do a POI, you just can unmute yourself, or you can put your POI in the chat. And you said you want to do POI in the chat. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the educator, we do believe that the national school was proposed to build under the government in order to make sure all of the people in our country in Indonesia get to know and study equally, and all of the people, all of the society who live with the government, they could get this kind of this kind of material, and they could learn and study a lot and more and more. Ladies and gentlemen, we do believe that the main purpose of the school itself is to make students to learn and in how to and in how our society, in how our students could socialize and adapted to their environment, and adapted in how they could socialize with their friend, and also with all of the people that they met in the school, whether it is with their friend, or also with it is maybe with their teacher. Ladies and gentlemen, from the opposition side of the house, we do believe that is the main aim in how and in why the national school was exist in our country. Now, from the government side of the house, they said that they want to do this kind of the fully digital of school, ladies and gentlemen. It does mean that they will do the scenario with this our student in the our student in whose school will only see into their phone, ladies and gentlemen. We do believe that in how that the fully in our side of the house, fully digital, it means that all of the system will be online and there is no school offline. It means that all the activity on that school will be applied by online, such as when they are going to have such as exam or studying such as like in the ruang guru and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. Here, what I believe is digitalize is a good things to do, but it is not good enough because digitalize had so much fake, and you cannot know what happened inside and what is happened in the outside itself, ladies and gentlemen. So if the government, if the opposition, if the government side of the house said that it is the capability of the government itself to make and to give the society this kind of facilities in how they could learn and digitalize the system itself, ladies and gentlemen. But here, if we are see in our status quo, in our current status quo, in what happened when we are facing the COVID-19 itself, ladies and gentlemen, we can see a lot of students who cannot reach this, who cannot reach the learn itself, ladies and gentlemen. They cannot school because what? Because they didn't have this kind of facilities, ladies and gentlemen. So when the government side of the house given the example and how the COVID-19 exists, and we are learning with the digitalized system itself, ladies and gentlemen, they only see in the majority, they only put a little bit example in how the people could easily access this kind of digitalized, such as signal, and also all of the technology that exists around them, that they are just took a little example about it, let's say that, but they are didn't even see in how our in how our society who are suffering in the east, uh, let's take a example like in the east, like in the Papua and so on, so forth and gentlemen. So it is so here I want to show you in how this kind of digitalized will not be effective, and it will not bring any it will not effective in how it will bring harm, and also it will not good, not just only the government, but also for the student itself, and also for the teacher itself, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if we are see the current situation in our country, where the development where our country was still in the development country, the development in our each part in our country was not the same, ladies and gentlemen. We can see that the gap between the majority in Java and with the minority in the east, or in the east Nusa Tenggara, ladies and gentlemen, we can see in how there is a big gap between us, ladies and gentlemen. And if we see what is how could this kind of digitalized studying could affect the student itself, ladies and gentlemen. What kind of what kind of effect that could bring for our students, ladies and gentlemen. First, get they will get harmed by their mentally itself, ladies and gentlemen. If we are see in our current status, if we are see how the situation when the COVID-19 was COVID-19 was came, and we are start to digitalize, and we are start to make our school using online, ladies and gentlemen. All of student Not all of student are to ready to do that. Yes, the government already said that they will do this kind of introduce. They will introduce about the digital learning itself, ladies and gentlemen. But the things that need by our society is not just the introduce, but also in how we can give them the facilities and all of the things that they need, such as the signal and quota. And from the government side, the house never explain and never give us the parameter in how and when this kind of digitalized will be start, and they will never, and they are never they cannot guarantee, they never, they can't guarantee in how this kind of their plan to make introduction and so on and so far would be applied would be applied in our country, ladies and gentlemen. While if we are see we are from a lot of we are a lot from province, we are a lot of island, ladies and gentlemen. So it is really unrealistic when they are trying to say that they will introduce digital learning in all of the place in our country, ladies and gentlemen. That's why if we are see a lot of harm, not just a lot of harm that happen from the side of our student itself, ladies and gentlemen. So we can see the digitalize of the school, of the national school, to go fully digitalized. It is not the solution in how uh, the the purpose of the government will be reached. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Now I would like to invite Deputy Prime Minister. DVM,
Am
are
I
you there?
audible?
Oh yeah, you're audible.
Okay, my POI preference, just unmute yourself and say POI. My gender pronoun is he or him. I'm gonna start in 3, two, one. So okay. So first of all, I would like to give clarifications that my first speaker never said that it's gonna be online or offline. But the thing is, we want to implement these systems by using fully digital, no matter is it offline or of online or offline. And also, we do believe that in this pandemic, we are shocked because we cannot study offline in the school, and then we're using online systems. Still so many students are not understand about how uh, uh, the the GCR program is. And also we do believe that um, and also moving to my some arguments. In this debate, I would like to explain to you how education look like if we go fully digital. Uh, uh, Two things to support my arguments that it will be more effective and efficient. Why? Because the students don't need to bring so many books to school. They only need to bring mobile phone or laptop to the school, because books can be changed, become file. In other words, it is more practical. We know that each student have different ways of learning. So if we use digital, we can provide different method. What do I mean? Is maybe some students like to reading, then we give them file that filled with writing. Those who don't like to read, then we give them learning methods in the forms of video, so they only need to watch the video. By this method, it will make students are easier to understand the lessons. Not only that, we say by digital, students can study everywhere because they only need to bring mobile phone. What do I mean is the students can study not only in the school but also outside the school. The students don't need to depend on the teacher getting into the class and explain the material, because the students can searching for videos, for example, in the YouTube, and looking for the explanations for those material. And taking another example, like the students um, that maybe are oftenly to skip the class because of other reasons, like maybe they practice for basketball competitions, for instance. Like, so because of their schedule to practice basketball, it means that the students will skip the class. So the students don't need to be worried about they don't understand about the lessons, because they can study in their house by their online mobile phones, or maybe they could read the file that given by the teachers. And also, second, it will saving time, because like we know that the national examinations, it takes a long times, because like we need to send the paper of the exam to the Jakarta. It takes a long time, and it's not effective by because we need to use transportations to send those papers, because the government in the Jakarta is the one who will check our examinations. Meanwhile, if we use digital, the government don't need to was saving much time, because it will be easier, because we use computer. For instance, we only can giving like link for the students to do the examinations, and also the students can click the link and also do the test. And also it only needs maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can see our score in our mobile phones. And also we do believe that it will saving so much cost, if because if we use fully digital, we don't need to buy books, for instance. And also we don't need to uh, and also we don't need to use paper, because we only like type on the type on the laptop, for instance. And also second is our win-win solutions, because we know that we're having a environmental problem. So so many illegal logging happens in our status quo. By fully digital, we don't need to use paper or pencils. So it means that we can reduce the of illegal logging, like, or maybe we don't need to cut the trees to make it become paper, because it means that our forests need to be focused, and also not only that, before we implement these systems, there's already like
Hi, am I audible? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Opposition can hear you.
Yeah. Has they finished or?
because in ruang guru, like we only need to we only need to pay for 700,000. But if we have a gimbal, not non-digital, we need to pay like three millions. And also I think that the students are don't want to read all of the books, but if we change the method of the learning system, it will make the students are more have incentive to learn, because that makes them easier to understand about the material. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. Let's invite the deputy leader of opposition.
Okay, give me a minute to set my timer on. Thanks. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, sorry. My preferred pronouns is he, him. My POI preference, you can put it in the chat. And I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. On today's motion, the opposition side of the House would like to give their stances, but before moving on to the arguments, we would like to give certain rebuttals. I don't think the government first speaker understand the full motion, what's the status quo today, because at the reality, national schools are not free. You as the students still need to pay for tuition fee, or even in Indonesia itself, you still have the uang buku type of fee in certain places, okay? Now that has been talked, that there is a fee for those national schools that they deem free. One more thing is that their first speaker are sure that the government may invest in a lot of money just to shift a whole different system of education, but the government will also need to socialize not only to the students, but to the parents, the teachers, the stakeholders. While that socializing is also ongoing, the stakeholders also need to adapt. And this is why most of the world are not prepared for this. Here's the thing, the government is highly praising the idea of modern technology, but never realizes what kind of harm it brings and how it brings them harm to the students who especially are treated since a younger age, because they are still pursuing education since their younger age, right? Why would you need pre-kindergarten student to go open a laptop where what they really need is to socialize with other human beings, their friends and their teachers? This is what we meant that in our stances, we don't want to fully digitalize the schools, but we want to go semi-digitalized, just like before. Because in some other way, it will change the nature of human being. They can be more introverted, or even worse, doesn't develop any human emotions, because all they are currently living is surrounded are in the virtual world of the internet and themselves, with maybe a little help of their parent. And the assumption for the students to not feel left out if they don't join class because they can study at their home. What is the difference with the mechanism that has been used in the whole world before the corona happens, where schools are going semi-digitalized, where schools are not fully digitalized, but some of its sections are, like the example of using ebook, examination, and other. Government only focusing on one part of the environment that they want to prevent, which is illegal logging, but never about the radiation or the technological waste, which will be later on brought in my argument. Why opposition side of the house don't want this? Because one, the implementation of schools are for the sake of studying. It is true that there are certain schools that are using the digital platform for the sake of helping the students with their information gathering, but the fact that this motion are encouraging for national schools to go fully digital are the one thing that we are opposing onto these opposition stances. The opposite side of the house stances is that we want the world to be back like it was before. Schools are not fully digital, but semi-digitalized, just like the old status quo before the corona happened. Now let me talk about the current status quo into this world where quarantine happened and some certain things make everyone adapt the technology because of the sudden change. Technically speaking, let's put our feet in their shoes and the one who can't even manage to buy any technologies to begin with. Going fully digital means that there are extra steps for the system to be evolve or adapt. From the parents to prepare more money to pay for their children's needs, which will later adapt the new ideology where one cannot study because they don't have the gadget itself to go to their digital school. From the system to adapt into this, from and that is why us as the options of the house think that school should not go fully digital because we are not ready. The system, the parents, including the environment. Let's talk about the theme of the debate first, the environment. The fact from 2020 and 2021, the world is healing from all this pollution or emission being used to drive their kids from home to school. It is a good thing, right? But the government may think that going digital is a good thing in the environment's sake because of this reason, where one carbon emission of a family are decreasing way more than the one they used before. But think about the future, 5 to 10 years later, when this style of life are implemented. How many gadgets do you need? How many of them are recyclable? None. Purchasing these tools whom we may not know the expectancy of the life usage because different families you have different life usage expectancy of their gadgets may harm the world in the future because of the household don't know how to recycle it. Well, in some parts of the world the government also don't know or don't have the ability to provide their citizens to recycle these kind of tools. Notice how the government side of the house only talk about the current situation but never think about the future because these gadgets, especially the battery and the radiation that it gave, is far more worse, not only to the environment, but also to the people. Not only that, high demands of interconnectivity, which will later on resulted in the more mining, more plastic usage because of the cable lines that spreads below the sea. Digitalized schools also means more antenna being built in certain places for them to have access to the internet, which will later on use a lot of materials, a lot of deforestation and those kind of things. There is a lot of impactful things to the environment that the government never realized by implementing this weird idea for the world. We know they meant good to the students by giving comfortability to the students by going digital, but not for the environment. Now imagine if one family with two children, how many do they own their gadget? Minimum one. Comfortability sake, let's say two. If they're privileged, even more than four. But then new devices came out. Well, will they have the urge to change their old devices? Yes, because this is the fact that people tend to have consumerism. Even during this current situation, online sales are way larger than before, and most family households during this era cannot even provide their students with the facility that they require, be it data connection, Wi-Fi, or even the gadget. There has been a viral video that criticizes the fully digital system in a poor family household run by a single mom in America with two children only, and they are privileged living in the America and still facing this problem. Reconnecting back to the rebuttals, why is the government first? Because very sure that the government in the world will surely provide more money just to shift the system of the education where most of the people cannot even afford or live with it in the first place. So as the option side of the house, our plan would be staying in the status quo before the corona happened. Your school are still digital, but not fully as a whole system. You may decrease the usage of the paper by still using the device you have or using an online platform with the tasks or quizzes on the or the examination. That is a benefit of digital, but we don't want to go fully digital. Like Kahoot or Google Form, you can use that to help with your students to go digital or some sort to also help decreasing the illegal logging. It is true, but we are provoking that the main purpose of school itself to make the student who learn, and the most effective way for student to learn is not fully online. Why? Psychology saying that if humans are not being supervised, they have the world to read without the moral of people judging them. You may think this is a great idea, but imagine how fast can they reach? Is it as fast as a student that goes to a non-digital or semi-digital school? What we mean by this is that there has been a lot of studies that support how online studying during the corona time not only affect the environment but also the mentality of students. How many times do you see people whine about their grades? People cheat during this term, during the examination, a lot, or at least one being publicized in the social media. We don't want this kind of mentality later on, where they rely on some devices on the internet, where they lose those kind of problem solving, because as the teenage or as the new generation of students, we are the one who are responsible for our future world. We are responsible for the environment later on. That is why, as person outside of the house, we would like to stand in our stances that national school should not go fully digital, but should stay in the old status quo or stay semi-digitalized or non-digitalized time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Now let's invite Government Whip.
Check, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Before I'm going to start my speech, I'd like to tell my gender pronouns. My gender pronouns is he or him, with the PI preference for to just unmute yourself. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Education is also a part of the important sector in our societies, right? We believe that in our society we should really consider on how our education right now. What we mean by going fully digital is not going fully online, right? We believe that if we can substitute something just like paper to something just like device, we would do something like we would do that. Not we are we What we meant is we didn't want to make the class will be fully online. Moving on to my rebuttals, my few rebuttals to the opposition side of the house is the first rebuttal is they are going fully assumptive regarding to mental illness that they already bring up from the first and the second speaker, right? They are concerned to us if we give the student authority to use the smartphone or to use the device, they would really focus more on the internet, right? We believe that they are really being assumptive regarding on how the school works, right? They forgot in the school there are still many teachers or many stakeholders that are capable on watching these student activities, right? Notice that we're going fully digital is only affecting on the school system, which is only the educational systems, right? They still can socialize or they can still talk to each other during the break time, for example, right? So we believe that the idea of socialization will still be achieved in our side of the house. Regarding on the mental issues, will still be will not exclusive in our side of the house. The next rebuttal is they are concerned to us regarding to the environment, right? We believe that in their side of the house they are concerned to us of how the technology in the future would be more harming in our side of the house, right? But you need to realize on how, if you stick on the status quo that my first speaker already said to you before, there is still so many trees that been cut down, right? Comparatively to the tree or the radiations, right? We could notice that how technology are really improved in the last few years, right? We could really rely on this technology improvement to solve the problem of the radiation itself. But in the very first place, we should really fix the problem of the illegal logging in the very first place, so that we could we could we could think of the solution of the problem of the radiation in the futures, right? Since we could rely more on the technologies in the very first place. Moving on to my extensions, few things that I would like to extend in my speech is 3 points. Number one is how does fully digital education would look like in our side of the house, and the second one is how important is the technology in education in our side of the house, and why should
why national school, not other school, should go to fully digital. First, you need to realize of how my first speaker already brought to you the urgency that they are keep ignoring about the situation and conditions, right? Right? Regarding on the past few event that make us shock for the coronavirus, for example, that force us to study online and use Google Classrooms, right? We believe that in the past we didn't give any student or didn't give student any explanation or any method on how to use Google Classrooms, right? So that will cause confusion in the students, right? We believe that we didn't want that to happen in the futures anymore, right? And the second urgency is about the environment and the climate change, as I already said before. 7.84 million trees to million hectares of tree being cut for just for the exam papers, right? And they need to realize that the thing that is important is in this era is the efficiency and the qualities, right? Notice in their side of the house or in their world, they are failed to maintain the quality of the education, right? Which we believe that the education is still lower than average, right? We believe that we can change this by going fully digital. How could I say so? Then I would like to extend more on how does fully digital education will look like in our side of the house. Firstly, it is easier method to learn. Comparatively, bringing 10 books bringing 10 books to one laptop is more efficient to bringing one laptop, right? We believe that this would is the burden of the student and make the student even more excited to study, right? And the second one is about accessibility, right? Notice on how online platforms such as Zoom and online classes make the studies even more easier, right? Which given my second speaker already given you the scenario on how when the teachers couldn't came, they could really use the platform of Zoom and online classes, right? And as a teacher managing data is also would be more easier, right? And the second point is how important is technology in education, right? Notice that on how every sector except from the education, such as entertainment, sport, and others, is really improving on the terms of technologies, right? Notice on the sport, there is now just like the tournament of the e-sport or the transportation or the education. We would keep using the old methods, right? We believe that we are living in a world where our student or our society is really demand on using a technologies, right? We believe that in our kids right now, such as millennials, are demanding to use to use technologies rather than to read books, right? We believe that this could if we could seek their interest, we could maintain or even increase the quality of the studies, right? Or maybe the opposition may question to us, or how would we implement this, or how are we capable of doing this? We believe that even if we are developing country, it doesn't mean that we couldn't do this if we put some starting point or some effort. We could really do this in this step-by-step analysis. Firstly, we would socialize to the student first, and then we would do some trainings and then fix some errors and step-by-step implementation until they become the daily basis. With in this step-by-step analysis, we believe that we could implement this in the future, right? And the third point is why national schools, right? We believe that this national school is also a sector of the government, and the government budgeting goes all to this, right? And this also a form of government investigation. Based on that comparison, I think we are proud to propose this motion. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks for that speech. Let's invite the opposition whip.
Am I audible? I'm sorry, I had to use the second speaker's device because my device has a signal problem.
Okay.
So I would like to start my my speech in 3, two ones. So we would like to state one final time that national school should not go fully digital because it is important that we need to consider about how this could harm students in any way. But before that, we don't know if government stances is to go fully digital or just digital in certain sectors, because if their stances is the second one, this means that their point of view on today's motions are already not talking about the motion. And our our second speaker already told the panels that certain studies actually tells us that fully digitalized school mechanism during the corona brings more harm and lower the quality of the education. Why would government say that say in our world education quality will become lower? And just to elaborate more about the the effect alongside the social interaction act, digital school can affect students in numerous ways, such as they may feel heightened anxiety about keeping up to date with their schoolwork, because there are possibilities that students might experience something else at their home while attending class or school, digital school. Like maybe they have distractions in their mind, like loneliness, stress, or family problems, or maybe homework, or they may experience or they I mean they may experience difficulty on concentrating or staying focused while at home because of the reasons I've mentioned before. And um, and if so the second speaker said that they never said online or offline, fully digital, whether online or offline. If the digital is like I mean if the school still consists offline activities, but do the class and school or learning progress through digital, then there may be students who finds it hard to study through internet because they need face-to-face explanation, like a full explanation um, and explanation from their teacher. Um, um, and also about the budget. If we want to use this digital school on all school around the country, then it wouldn't be effective because the infrastructure or the facilities from each province or region is different. There are several places in the provinces that didn't have didn't have uh, cor- um, didn't have the best facilities to do this digital school, because many countries, this developing country, for example Indonesia, we we already we already we already use a digital school, but it's not effective because we as students uh, experience it to ourselves. There are still unequal distributions or of facilities like quotas. There are still teachers or lecture that didn't give the material uh, in the best way, so for them to understand the material. So this is so for us, this digital fully digital school in national school around the country is not effective in any way. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that speech. Now, like to invite the opposition reply.
Sorry, for clarification, how many minutes do we get?
4 minutes for reply.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will start my reply speech in three. Yeah, in three. Wait, sorry. I'll start in my reply speech in 3, 2. Okay, panels. Why the opposition side of the house should win this kind of debate? But before moving on to those arguments, the opposition reply speaker would like, sorry for the background noise, would like to give some clarification and also some ideas on why the government side of the house are losing into this debating motion or debating round. The government stance are very weird fellow panels or judges. In their first speaker, they want to go fully digital, while on the third speaker, they clarify again their meaning that fully digital is going digital in some sections only. It would have been a fair debate if the government side are staying in one stances and not owning two stances, where they want to pursue school digitally through their house or just digitalized in certain sectors. Not only that, government onto this debate are lacking of standing points. Their main point about environment has been tackled from the second speaker of the opposition that environmental changes not only involves in the illegal logging. And we at the opposition side of the house also challenged them to talk about the radiation and modern ways or modern technological ways, and none of them brought or at least talk about this point. Not only that, government best case scenario are not the best case scenario, fellow judges. From their first speaker, they want to have the world fully digitalized, where governments invest a lot of money. Even their first speaker recognizes that money is the problem, but then shrugged it off in the middle of their speech. None of them spread more clarification on how small developing countries like Tuvalu, for example, in the Micronesia, for example, can manage to cover those expenses. Our second speaker have told you the viral status quo thing, where one family are struggling because of the expenses that they need to cover just to support at least 1 month of a digital school. Now, government also says, now, why do they still think to bring this kind of argument in their third speech? Government also says that in their world, they are so sure that they will increase their quality of education. Never explained by them what is the parameters of high quality of education or the parameters of low quality of education. Do they dare to say that graduates from this kind of corona thing are included in the low quality education? Because none of the parameters being set by the government. Now, this is why panels should not accept this point to be moving on. Because from not only that, from the second speaker already told them that in today's world, where schools are in the trial of digitalization, studies have shown that education quality are significantly lower than before. And why do they actually pretty proud to assume that in the world that being brought by the option side of the house, things that the world will be lower, the education rate will be lower in quality. What are the standards of the government? Such minimizing illegal logging, achieving higher quality education, and giving comfortability to the students. None of those three. From the first to third speaker, they have been spiraling around in both stances, trying to back each other up, and never realizes that most of their points have been tackled by the second speaker of the opposition. Now, why opposition should win on this debate? Because most of the points are still standing. Like example, that gadgets later on will bring more harm to the environment, including radiation, modern technical waste that are not recyclable, um, where families are actually struggling, where the bodies of governments should also think about their expenses, should also think about their socially socializing. Well, this will actually take a lot of time, right, panels? Now, this kind of standing points that never been touched by the opposition are the main reason on why opposition should win this debate. Not only that, we also back each other team up properly and also still winning our stances from the first to the second to the third and explain thoroughly with our detailed explanation on why onto this motion that national schools should not go fully digital, and we are also still sticking on our one main stances, that is schools should stay in at least semi-digitalized or non-digitalized. So that's all for the reply speech. Thank you.
To close the debate, let's invite government reply.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. So okay. As the reply speaker, I would like to conclude what happened in this debate. First, in my team, we already give the urgency about the environment and also the climate change. My previous speaker already stated to you that 7.84 million hectare trees cut to make exam paper each year. We know that tree logging are used to produce paper and also pencil. Paper and pencil used in education. Imagine how many paper that we are used every day. Means the more we use paper, the more that the tree logging happen. Meanwhile, tree and the forest are important to keep exist because the forests have important role to protect our environment. Meanwhile, the tree logging still exists, but the society and also the government uh, lack of care to the environment because we see that if there's no tree in the forest, it will create so many disasters like landslide and also flood. And also the justifications. There's two parameters in this debate. The first, the capability of the government, and also second, the responsibility of the government. We think that it is okay for the government to spend budgeting in educations or maybe provide a computer in the school because we see like in we see that like by fully digital it will more efficient and also effective because first, this method is easier for the students comparing like bringing 10 books to one laptops. And so second, the accessibility like Zoom and also online classes. The students don't need to be worried if they skip the class because they still can learning outside the school. And also as the teacher, the managing data will be easier and also like the teacher don't need too complicated to check one by one the students examination, for instance. Like the data in the computer will appear in like a few minutes, so it will be more efficient for time. And also we do believe that um, the technology is important in education because technology have improved in every sector. Then why not in education? Because by we implement these systems, like the students and also the teacher already prepare if there's like kind other problem that similar to the COVID-19, for instance. And also the student itself are used to use the digital like mobile phones like right, like the teacher will control and also the students will get under visions by the teacher itself. So the teacher also can guarantee the students study and also understand the material. And also uh, the opposition team bring the case of mental issues. They said that the students become stressed and bored because they study online. But no elaborations why by online class the students could get mental issues. We say that by fully digital is it can be implemented online or also offline. So I think like maybe in this status quo, some students still study online and some students study offline. But the thing is how the teacher could deliver the lessons to the students by saying that the students have a different ways of learning. So by the digital, we could be more creative because we can provide the learning methods that are matched with the students' interest and how they could easier to understand about the material. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for that speech. And please wait for like 15 minutes. I will be back with the decision here. And for Team Rasain, please also fill your feedback for the previous round. Feedback.
Yes, Kak, sorry.